Hello, my little toads and not so little toads. I have a book tonight, a Halloween book. That's one of my new favorites since I discovered the Cranberry books. And this one is called Cranberry Halloween. And it's by a husband and wife. This book's a little bit older. I think this book came out I think it's 1982 that this one came out. And it's by a couple named Wendy and Harry Devlin. Wendy, the wife, she is the one who writes the stories, and her husband Harry draws the pictures and illustrates the books. So let's read Cranberry Halloween. This is the page just before the story gets started, and it says, "For our grandson, Brian Monteith Gates." Sometimes an author will write a book, and then they have what they call a dedication page, where they dedicate the book to their kids or their grandkids or a good friend or their parents or somebody that they love and somebody who inspires them. The New England October skies were bright and blue. Do you guys all know what we mean by New England? New England is the east side of the United States. So like if you come to the west side where most of us live, that is, most of us meaning those of us in our family. So we're West Coast and the West we're called. But the New England states are kind of more in the north and the east of the United States. Some of them are by the Atlantic Ocean. So let's start again. The New England October skies were bright and blue. Orange and yellow pumpkins lay in the fields, and the smell of cider was everywhere. "Halloween! Wonderful Halloween is coming," said Maggie, throwing her hat in the air. Grandmother stopped stirring her cake. "Halloween is coming, but there will be 2 weeks of hard work before it does. All the money for the new dock must be in on Halloween night, or it can't be finished by winter." A week ago, when the Cranberry dock had been swept away by a wild storm, the townspeople had gathered in dismay at their town hall. What would Cranberry be without a dock? Where would they tie their boats? Where would the children gather to fish and swim? Where would they all meet to picnic and watch sunsets? "We will build a new dock," said the mayor, "and we will all help to raise the money," said Grandmother. "Suffering codfish, I'll collect the money," said Mr. Whiskers. I guess you can all tell who Mr. Whiskers is, huh? "I have my grandfather's money box." "Then you shall be treasurer, Mr. Whiskers," said the mayor, "and I'll guard your blinking money with my life," said the old clam digger, saluting proudly. But not everyone wanted Mr. Whiskers to be treasurer. Mr. Grape was not about to let his least favorite neighbor enjoy such an honor. "I object," said Mr. Grape. He banged his cane on the floor. "I double object. Mr. Whiskers doesn't pull his weeds, doesn't paint his house, and doesn't wash his windows. He'll lose your money." Grandmother stood and looked at Mr. Grape in the eye. Mr. Whiskers would never let his friends down. The crowd quite agreed with Grandmother, and Mr. Grape left, shaking his cane angrily. The people of Cranberryport went home and began to plan how they would earn money. Everyone wanted to help. Grandmother and her friends would have pie and cake sales. Maggie would sell old books, and Mr. Whiskers began to gather clams to make chowder to sell at the general store. And Mr. Whiskers, he's an old clam digger. Boy, this Mr. Grape is a really ornery looking character, isn't he? One day, Mr. Whiskers walked up the long path to Mr. Grape's big brick house on the hill to ask for a donation. He waved to Mr. Grape's two red-headed gardeners, and he rang the front doorbell. Mr. Grape jumped in rage when he saw Mr. Whiskers. "Never! I'll give no money for your dock, you whiskery humbug, and stay away from my house." Mr. Whiskers forgot all his good intentions. "Why, you old scoundrel, where's your town pride?" Mr. Grape slammed his door. Grumbling and scowling and growling, Mr. Whiskers made his way back over the cranberry bogs to his tiny gray cottage on the beach. The night of Halloween finally arrived, cold and moonlit. Tonight, all the money would be counted at town hall, and a wonderful party would follow with cider and donuts for all. Grandmother packed her basket with sugar donuts and went ahead to help prepare for the party. Later, Mr. Whiskers stopped by to walk Maggie into town. Maggie wore a pink and green clown costume with a pointed clown's hat. Mr. Whiskers, dressed as a ghost, tapped his money box proudly. "Almost full," he boasted to Maggie. They started for town. The rising winds in the pines and the screech of an owl were the only sounds in the blue night. A dark, empty house next to a bridge loomed against the sky. "Do we have to pass by that house tonight?" asked Maggie. "It's not so bad. I played in it when I was a boy," said Mr. Whiskers. "My old Aunt Prue lived there." Ooh, that house does look just a little bit scary, doesn't it? Suddenly, Maggie whispered, "Stop! I hear someone behind us." Mr. Whiskers whirled to see two burly men in pirate costumes almost upon them. "Hand over that money box," one of them hissed. "Mind your blinking manners," roared Mr. Whiskers. "Nobody takes my money box." He grabbed Maggie's hand and ran up the vine-tangled path to the deserted house. The dark of the night and heavy boots slowed the pursuing pirates. Running like the wind, Maggie and Mr. Whiskers fled to the front door. They pulled it open and squeezed in. Panting, Mr. Whiskers locked the door behind them. "Run for the back door and lock it," shouted Mr. Whiskers. Maggie felt her way through the darkened house, found the kitchen door, and bolted it just in time, for in the window she saw the fierce mask of one of the pirates. He pounded on the door and shouted, "Open up! We have you trapped." Ooh, that's kind of scary. Mr. Whiskers and Maggie, their hearts beating wildly, leaned against the kitchen wall, and they listened. The old house was filled with noises. Upstairs, the doors creaked, the wind moaned through the turrets, and the shutters banged. "I think I don't believe in ghosts," said Mr. Whiskers uneasily. "I think I don't either," echoed Maggie. "Good," said Mr. Whiskers. "Let's find a way out of here." Mr. Whiskers looked all around the kitchen. "Maggie, I remember something. We used to come in from the spring house by an underground passageway. Are you game to go down to the cellar?" Maggie thought of spiders and mice in damp darkness, but with sudden spirit she said, "Let's go." Mr. Whiskers led the way. At the foot of the squeaking cellar stairs, he struck a match. The dim light showed a rough, mossy door. Mr. Whiskers put his shoulder to the door and heaved mightily. An ancient bolt snapped and the door swung away as mice scuttled and spiders scattered into the darkness. Mr. Whiskers fought his way through cobwebs, and Maggie followed, clutching Mr. Whiskers' sheet. Stumbling and groping through the underground passageway, they came in time to the spring house. What's a spring house? You guys know, like, water coming out of the ground is called a spring. And I think people who had springs on their property would build like a little building around it to protect the to protect the spring. And so that would probably be what the spring house is. At last, Mr. Whiskers and Maggie pushed their way into the clear night air. "Shh," whispered Mr. Whiskers. "We can slip away behind those pine trees." Silently, they crept from the house back to the road and then off to town. At town hall, Grandmother worried and fussed. The mayor fumed, and the rest of the party became impatient at the absence of Mr. Whiskers and Maggie. The children had paraded around in their costumes. A feast of homemade donuts and pitchers of golden cider was placed on the tables. Everyone was anxious to eat, but where were Mr. Whiskers and Maggie, and where was Cranberryport's money? Mr. Grape jumped to his feet. He looked very pleased. "You wouldn't listen to me. I told you Mr. Whiskers couldn't be trusted. You won't see that old good-for-nothing tonight." While Mr. Grape scolded the mayor and the crowd, a ghost and a small clown slipped into the midst of the party. After whispering to the sheriff, the ghost made his way through the crowd to Mr. Grape. In a sudden flurry, the ghost threw off his sheet, and there Mr. Whiskers stood in a grinning triumph. "Well, suffering codfish, I'm here, and so is my money box," said Mr. Whiskers. Mr. Grape gawked and gasped and fell back in his chair. "You have the money box?" he squeaked anxiously. Behind the crowd, the sheriff's voice boomed. He held 2 pirates in tow. "It's just as Mr. Whiskers said. These 2 rascals thought that they had Mr. Whiskers and Maggie trapped in the old Peabody house." Uh-oh. Mr. Whiskers stared at the unmasked pirates. "Why, they are Mr. Grape's gardeners," he said in amazement. "He's the one who made us do it," said the gardeners, pointing to Mr. Grape. Mr. Grape began to tiptoe towards the door when the sheriff's voice rang out. "Sit right here until I decide what to do with you, sir." Now the mayor, who had been counting the money for the new dock, rose to his feet and faced the crowd. "Bad news," he said. "There just isn't enough money for the new dock." The crowd groaned. Mr. Grape raised his hand. Would you allow this public-spirited citizen to make up the difference?" He looked in the sheriff's direction with what he hoped was a winning smile. I'm just not sure Mr. Grape could really do a nice smile, but anyway. The sheriff turned to Mr. Whiskers. "Well, it's up to you, sir." Mr. Whiskers took a bite of donut, brushed the sugar from his brass button coat, and hummed a little tune. Slowly he smiled through his whiskers and said, "For the folks of Cranberryport, we might accept that blinking offer." The sheriff took his hand from Mr. Grape's shoulder and turned to the pirates. "And you 2 better tend to your gardening." Mr. Grape sighed with relief. Yep, he looks pretty relieved, doesn't he? The rest of the evening was Halloween celebration. Cranberryport would have a new dock, and everyone delighted in bobbing for apples, singing, and drinking cider. "You were a fine treasurer," said Grandmother as she watched Mr. Whiskers bob for apples. "Yes, I'm a blooming wonder," said Mr. Whiskers. Maggie laughed. Grandmother shook her head, and Mr. Whiskers went down in the tub again in a final try for an apple. And that's the end of Cranberry Halloween, excepting for on this page, there's a recipe. They do this in the cranberry books. And in this one, it's called Cranberry Dessert. And I was just, for all of you guys who can read, it has, it has 4 cups of ground or chopped cranberries, 2 cups of sugar, and it has drained cubed pineapple and nuts and marshmallows and Jell-O, and you combine all that with whipped cream and you put it in the refrigerator until it's all set up. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds kind of yucky to me. I don't think I would like that. But, you know, to each his own. So that is the story of the Cranberry Halloween. Did you like that book? I liked reading it to you. Good night.